Hey, this is Paul, and I've been getting a lot of questions about people wondering why their dragon fruit doesn't have any fruit yet. And the short answer is probably the season, and number one factor is the age of your plant. So you can see here that this voodoo child is about 4 years old now, and you can see that it had these branches at least one season where they've been dormant, and now that they've turned to fruiting wood, as Danny would call it, our friend Danny Loftus, he would call these fruiting wood branches. So the first season branches, like this new growth here, it's never going to have a fruit. It very rarely, actually, it could produce a fruit at the end of the branch, but that's very uncommon. Usually the branches will grow, and then they need a season to mature, and then they're going to make these flower buds. So if you look around here, all of these have had the same fertilizer, yet this is a variety that has all the flower buds here. And the reason why is because Sugar Dragon and Voodoo Child tend to be the early bloomers along with American Beauty. So this is its second flush. You can actually see its first flush is right here. So it's on its second wave of flower buds already, and these will produce anywhere up to 6 flushes in one season for this variety of Voodoo Child and Sugar Dragon. So that's a mature plant in an optimal situation. You can see here's a little bit of a younger one. This is a Sugar Dragon, and it has a lot more young growth here that will not produce flower buds, but it's just starting to produce some flower buds here with some new growth. So you can prune off some of your new branches. If you have a huge plethora amount, you could prune them off, and that may inspire these plants to flower. But another factor is also the time of the year. So the summer solstice is coming, and that's where this one, Mr. Wu in this case, you can see Mr. Wu is really happy, well fertilized, lots of flower buds that turn to branches here. You can see like this one. And this one, it wants to produce flower buds, but the temperature is the biggest factor, in my opinion, for this plant. So once we get a nice heat wave, this thing's gonna produce a ton of flower buds here. It's ready to go. It's got this mature growth here. And last season, this produced around 2 dozen fruit off of this plant alone. It was highly productive. So I expect a lot of fruit from this plant this season. But again, it's the time of the year. After the summer solstice in June 16th, that's where I predict that this one will have a lot more of its flower buds. Also a heat wave. We're waiting for that heat wave next week. We'll get into the 80s. So you can see here, this is Donovan's Laverne Red. And this one produced quite a few fruits. One was almost 3 pounds last season, and it's got lots of early young growth here, really happy and healthy, but no flower buds yet. And again, I think this is due to the time of the year and the temperature. So you can see it's been foggy, it rained last night, it's in the 60s, it's just really cold, and these plants are just waking up here, waiting for some more heat. In this case, you can see this one's just topping the trellis. So generally, you want to promote a lot of the energy to go up and over the trellis. So I'm gonna have to thin out all these branches here and promote growth up and over the trellis. That's another way to get more of your dragon fruit to produce flower buds. The branches need to come over and bend down. So something like this one, this would be a good chance that this could produce a fruit this season. It hasn't yet. We're gonna wait for that heat wave. It's got some new growth here. But I would predict that a branch like this, it's over a year old, it could produce a fruit, and it's generally gonna do it down towards the bottom, or maybe here on this gray Panama. So that's where we generally see a lot of their flower buds. So once it warms up here, like this plant, for example, this one has never flower budded yet. It's an unknown white flesh from Mexico. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna thin out some of the new growth, and then especially down here, you'll wanna see like this one, for example. You don't want these branches to grow down. So what you'll wanna do is just thin them out. And this is another way to help promote the plant, to wanna entice it to bloom.
Or cutting off the tip, right?
Yeah, you could tip it, but some people say that that doesn't matter. So I like to tip my branches. I think it does, in my humble opinion, I think it's a good thing to promote it depending on the time of the year. But some people swear that tipping it doesn't matter at all. So generally, as long as you see happy, healthy growth like this, I'm not concerned. I know that this plant is going to produce flowers and fruit this season. The problem is I just need the weather to cooperate, and that's out of my control. The soil is well draining. You can see it's happy, it's healthy, has lots of new growth, it's well fertilized. So everything I've done on my end that I can do to get this plant healthy and happy has been done. Now I'm just waiting on the weather. and that tends to be the biggest factor. So your zone where you are, like in Puerto Rico, they can grow much longer. Their season's much longer than here in Southern California, because where we're gonna grow is maybe July till September. So our window is narrower, where these plants are going to produce and grow under the optimal conditions. And this season especially has been so cold. I mean, you can look at this one. This Polyrhizis, this Trinidad, is actually, I may pull it from the collection just because it hasn't produced yet for me, and I've had it since 2020. So this plant's 3 years old, and every year it gets damaged, and I have to cut off the canopy. Like, I don't see any of this bouncing back. I don't see any new growth. It's really floppy and it's not healthy. So what the plant's going to do is going to produce new branches down low. And so something like this, it's really hard to entice, and it's actually frustrating. I've wanted to try this fruit for several years. Scott, you got to try it, right?
I think it was happier once I moved it to almost like full shade.
So this one, in this case, you think maybe the sunlight could be a factor.
Yeah,
maybe this is getting too much sun.
Yeah, mine didn't flower and fruit until I moved it under a tree, which it's just...
So you protected it more, and it's doing better.
It likes it more, yeah.
Well, as you can see, there's just so many factors. Some you can control, some you can't. But the number one way that you can get a dragon fruit to fruit and flower, in my opinion, is one, the age of the plant. You got to have these nice mature branches, like something like this is going to produce a fruit. And you got to make sure it's the time of year is right and the temperature. The more I work with these plants, the more I realize that temperature is the biggest factor for these plants to want to flower and grow. So days like today, where it's in the 60s, there's not going to be any new flower buds. We need that next heat wave. So once we get into the mid 70s, 80s, we're going to have some more flower buds in here. So I hope that helps a little bit, and some of the strategies that we use and we have learned over the years to promote flowers and fruit on these beautiful, lovely plants. Give us a like and a subscribe. We'll keep them coming. Have a great day.